There was one sin which I had come to fear above all others. Certainty. If there was only certainty and no doubt, there would be no mystery. And therefore no need for faith.
Conclave is the newest religious thriller to hit theaters. It's directed by Edward Berger, and it's based on a novel of the same name from 2016. And fun fact, when I told my mom that I had watched this movie, she went and bought me the book for my birthday a few days ago. So thank you, Mom. I will be reading it soon. The movie stars Ralph Fiennes as Cardinal Lawrence, and Cardinal Lawrence's job within the Catholic Church is to overlook the proceedings surrounding the selection of a new pope. And that is where our movie begins, because at the beginning of this film, you find out that the previous pope has passed away, so now Cardinal Lawrence has to put together this conclave of eligible cardinals to see who is going to be elected to become the next pope. And about that time in the movie, the political element starts to show its head, because you see different factions of these cardinals start to group together because they want different things for the new pope. Like, for instance, there's one faction that wants to take the church back about 100 years and be more strict with the rules. You've got other factions that want the church to embrace change and be more progressive with the Catholic Church. And then you've got other front runners who are trying to teeter on the balance of sort of supporting both parties and keeping the status quo within the church. And it's about that time that the thriller element to this movie is introduced, because Cardinal Lawrence, while he is overlooking these proceedings, trying to make sure that everything is fair and balanced, he starts to hear reports about different scandals from some of the front runners who are going to be potentially elected to become pope. So while he's trying to sift through these reports, figure out these scandals, what's real, what's not, he also has to try and remember to keep his own opinions out of this, because this is such a delicate process for the Catholic Church. And if that sounds like an interesting concept to you, well, you could check this movie out. It is playing in theaters now, and I'm sure it'll be streaming very soon. If nothing else, you should watch this for the thriller element of this movie, but more on that in a little bit. Let's get into my positives and some of my negatives. My first positive has to be surrounding the acting in this film. You get great performances out of John Lithgow, Stanley Tucci, but most importantly, Ralph Fiennes. Ralph Fiennes gives a performance that I believe is Oscar worthy, especially based on all the other films I've seen this year. This is the singular best performance that I've seen in a film all year. Ralph Fiennes absolutely crushes it. The emotion and range that he's able to bring to the film brings you along for the ride. When he's sad about things, you're sad about them. When he's excited about the selection of a pope, you get excited about the selection of a pope. If it wasn't for Ralph Fiennes, I feel this movie would have fallen on its face. And while there were good performances throughout this film, I think he gives an absolute Oscar-worthy performance, and I will not be shocked at all if he is nominated for this movie. My next positive is the political and thriller element of this movie. I never thought a selection of a pope could have so much intrigue to it. I've never been part of the Catholic Church myself, so this process or these proceedings surrounding selecting a new pope, none of that has really interested me in the past, but I found myself just fully engulfed in this film, looking at the different political aspects of these cardinals. Watching the election process was so interesting, and then just the thriller mystery aspect of this movie, where you do have different scandals, because these are humans at the end of the day. These are people that have human error within them at the end of the day. And I like how they bring that human error to light, which leads me to my final positive of this film. And that is that this is not just a gigantic slap in the face to the Catholic Church, for the most part, throughout this film. Throughout the film, you see these different scandals. And if you know anything about scandals and the Catholic Church, there's one thing they really could have dived deep on in this film, but they don't go into that, and I appreciated that, because this movie didn't need to be a slap in the face to the Catholic Church. You were going over the proceedings, but you're looking at the fact that these are humans being elected to this very precious position within the church. And so you see these scandals come out, and some of the scandals have to do with money, and there are some sex scandals, but they're not those sex scandals. So I appreciated that myself, because I didn't want just another hit piece on the Catholic Church in this film. I wanted a movie surrounding just the political proceedings, and that, for the most part, is what we got. And that'll lead me over to my negatives. And my first negative for this film is that the story does take a bit to get going in the first act. What I mean by that is that you see the Pope pass away, and you see all of the different proceedings surrounding what they need to do with the Pope and his body and his ring and his room, all of that in the first act. Now, that's a negative for me. But if those are real things that they do within the church, I understand why they went through the process. And if you are religious and you are a Catholic, maybe you'll appreciate the things that they did with his reign, with his body, with his room. If you want to watch all that detail, all of that detail is there. Just for me personally, I was more interested in the political and thriller aspect that really kicks into gear by the second act. So in the first act, it just takes its time getting there. And again, it's not necessarily the worst thing I've seen, but it was a negative for me because it just took its time getting there. And that'll lead me over to my other negative. And my other negative is a bit of a spoiler because it has to do with the end of the proceedings of this film. So what I will say at this point is that if you don't want any spoilers, hit the like button, take off, watch the movie, come back later. But if you don't mind spoilers, if you want me to tell you about the end of this film, well, spoilers are ahead. You have been warned. With that said, my other negative for this film is the way they end it. Now, I like the way they end the proceedings. I think that it's done really well. Throughout this process of them trying to select the cardinals, amidst all the scandals that Cardinal Lawrence is trying to sift through, they do finally elect a pope. And this pope is someone who, yes, wants to embrace change, but wants to respect the rules of the past. He also wants to bring the church together. They give a great emotional message at one point in this movie, and it's beautiful. As the viewer, I thought it was a great message to send. So this is not my negative. But my negative comes in the last 5 minutes of this film. Now, I don't know if this is in the book. If it is, they were just being true to the novel. It is what it is. And to be clear, I don't personally have a stake in this game, so I don't care. But it is a negative because I think it was completely unnecessary. When you get to the end of this movie, they elect this cardinal who no one knows much about. He was a cardinal that was put into his position in secret by the previous pope. So when he shows up at the conclave, nobody really knows him. But by the end of the movie, this cardinal has earned all of their trust and gets elected with a majority to become the next pope. And again, all of that worked for me. However, at the end of this movie, a final scandal is introduced in the last 5 minutes, and that is that this individual who's been elected to become pope is actually intersex, which means he was born with male and female parts, and he never had surgery to have one of those things removed because he says, this is the way I was created. It's the way God made me. The Pope knew this previously, so I am now in this position as someone who's going to take the church forward, even though I am this individual. And I put that in my negatives because my issue with that isn't the fact that this individual is an intersex. Remember, I'm not Catholic. I don't have any skin in the game. My issue and my reason that this is such a big negative for me is that something that was just tagged on in the last 5 minutes of the film. Now, maybe the book is the exact same way and they were just doing the book the exact same way. I don't know. Haven't read the book yet, but I will. But the last 5 minutes of this film, they go into this individual who now is this intersex, and it just feels so shoehorned in to the end of the movie. And that's a negative for me because it wasn't really something that was brought up throughout the rest of the film. He was just sort of this background person, a little mysterious, like where'd he come from? And yes, he did have conversations with Cardinal Lawrence throughout the movie, but I thought those conversations were strengthening Cardinal Lawrence to become the next pope. But in the end, they make this individual the next pope. And again, that worked for me, but just tagging on those last 5 minutes of, oh yeah, by the way, I'm intersex, so now we have our first intersex pope, just felt so tacked on at the end. It felt so shoehorned in that it doesn't really fit with the rest of the elements of this film, in my personal opinion. And I'm not really sure where most Catholics would line up with this. I don't think that's something that they would be for. So that leads me to my question of who is this movie made for? Because you could say, okay, it's just a movie honoring the book, put it out there, but your main majority audience for a movie called Conclave is going to be older Catholics, people holding on to that religion, I would think. So you get into this film and you give them an intersex pope at the end, and I feel like that's a bit of a slap in the face to those people. Now, maybe it's not. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm coming from a place of no knowledge whatsoever. So maybe I should just go back to reviewing superhero films. But my opinion of that is that it's a bit of a slap in the face to those people that you're marketing the movie to in the first place. But again, I could be wrong. Overall, I will say that I really enjoyed this one. It is a great thriller, and I think that if the last 5 minutes of this movie hadn't been shoehorned in, this movie might be in my top 10. It's that damn good. The acting is that good. The thriller element is that good. The political proceedings are that good. I liked so much of this movie, but the end just felt shoehorned, and I can't put it in my top 10. It's somewhere floating in the 20 rankings right now. You guys don't care about that. The point I'm making here is that I thought this movie was decent. I would recommend it to you, but probably streaming at home. Although if you're a big fan of political religious thrillers, you might enjoy this one in the theater. But guys, those are just my opinions because that's my review for Conclave. Have you had a chance to check this movie out yet? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below. Let me know where we agree or disagree. Maybe you're a practicing Catholic and you've got thoughts on this movie. I'd love to know those in the comment section down below as well. Finally, guys, if you like this video, don't forget to hit the like button because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Alright guys, we got to the end of my Conclave review, and hopefully this wasn't too controversial. I just want to talk about movies. But with that said, if you like this video and you want to check out other content on my channel, well, I've got all of my best and worst of 2024 right there, and I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.